second.
So, nothing says a good talk like technical difficulties.
Shouldn't you have CI for this?
Yeah, I need to set up integration with the projector.
Can you just roll back to the previous release?
We should have automated tests for our projector. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. Cool. We are still here. Sweet. So let me just do that. Cool. So welcome everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Brian Besmanoff. That's my handle on GitHub, which does come into play because both this slide deck and also my example app are on GitHub. So today, as Colin introduced, CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery. While we were sitting up here with the freeze on, somebody asked me about delivery versus deployment. So there's actually a difference. Technically, it's one of those things that I didn't realize it until I started looking in. Delivery is multiple times a day, where deployment is like once every few weeks. It's the same process, just at different speeds. To me, continuous is fast though. So going with CD being delivery. Cool. So just a heads up, I'm going to be talking about different products and services. This is kind of my ideas and my opinions on those. They don't really mean anything outside of me, so please don't read into it. So let's kind of kick this off. So continuous integration. I like going with quotes by smart people. So Martin Fowler's a pretty smart guy, in case you haven't heard of him. Continuous integration is a software development practice where members of a team integrate their work frequently. Usually each person integrates at least daily. So this would be, pulling from some central repository, pulling from somebody else's fork, just somehow getting your code, making sure it's up to date with everyone else. And CD, continuous delivery, is a software development methodology where the release process is automated. Every software change is automatically built, tested, and deployed to production. And this is by the folks over at Amazon on their code deploy product. So you may be seeing, aren't those the same thing? Like if you're integrating your code and like you're building and you're testing, isn't that all like the same thing? So technically no, like they are different steps, but realistically is, so yeah, the theory is that CI will only just be pulling your code and getting it up to date, whereas CD will actually run tests and then push out to production. In practice, no, like most products will build and test your code when you're integrating, as well as have the option of pushing up. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. So how do I get started? So first thing to get set up is your build process. And this is kind of up to you as a developer, as a team. What is my build process? For some people, it's just like compilation or transpiling or whatever one might do with those fancy new tools these days. Sometimes building requires unit tests. Sometimes it requires style checks. So it's really up to you. I've seen builds that are like 4 or 5 steps where it's like unit tests and style and static analysis and all these things to say that yes, your software is like green. It can do its minimal set of functionality. Then you need to pick a tool. And there's kind of a lot of them out there. Jenkins, AWS Code Pipeline, Travis CI, Circle CI. Has anyone heard of anything that's not on this list? Yeah, because so.
Try.
No.
Bamboo.
Yeah. Team City, yeah.
VSO and TFS.
Yeah. So there's a lot. VSO, TFS, Bamboo. The kind of joke out there was try being able to build and test your code for submission for homework. Technically, yes. Technically, it does build your code and test your code and would deploy by saving your code. Yeah. Not condoning any products here. And but the thing is, these are a mix of true CI and true CD, getting back to those theories. Like, for example, Circle CI, which I'll talk about later, can actually push things and do deployments. Heroku is natively integrated, even though it's a CI product, if you go just by the name. And once you pick these, once you pick a tool or multiple, or however you choose to do it, you got to integrate it with source control. So GitHub makes that really easy. You can literally, so the best way to do that is going to be a demo app. So, and not only is it good to have a demo app, it's going to be a live demo app. So here I am, Circle CI. I am going to add a project from myself, and I am going to build my CI/CD example app. This is the actual first build. Like, I haven't tried this out before, so this should be interesting. So as you can see, Circle CI is now starting the build, starting a container. Going to take a little bit. So it sets a node version, does an npm install to pull down dependencies. Yeah. So all this is going, just the example app is really basic. It's just a couple of math-based functions. Is that a question or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it seems like all I did was select the GitHub info. How does Circle CI know what to build?
Yep. So Circle CI will pull down based on the kind of project it is. So it knows that this is a node project by things like the presence of package.json and stuff. So because of that, Circle CI is configured to just run like npm install and npm test, and that is configurable. So in this case, so it failed because the ESLint wasn't found. So I defined my build process to be run my unit tests and also run my linter to make sure I was passing style checks. In this case, it failed. And yeah, so most likely with the package, not with npm itself. So that may have been my bad. So if we go over to master and check out the package.json, yeah, forgot to include ESLint. But that gives a perfect opportunity to actually see how this would be used in the real world. So if I throw my terminal up over on here and do go back to master. So save dev ESLint. So it's going to do its thing. And if I now commit that, and push it, and we go back over to Circle CI, we can see it's now a little clock because it's running a new build. So all I did was push my code, and it picked up on that and is now rerunning the build. So we'll let that go.
Next question.
Yeah.
So when you were showing the CI tools, you said after you picked one or multiple. Do you know of an example or a reason why you would use multiple of them for one?
I mean, there's not really a reason to, but there's nothing stopping you. If all they're doing is watching your repo and then building things, maybe there's some plugin for Jenkins that you really want, or like you have something that's like super ridiculously private and you want it hosted. But you know, either the rest of the app or any of your other apps can be built publicly. You can use that. Yeah, so in this case, it ran tests. Math.absolute should return 0 for 0. Cool, it's passing. Build is successful. So that's really all there is to it. Even with the little hiccup of having a failing build first, that took not even 5 minutes to get CI set up for this project. It's now going to watch for changes and build and deploy. So step 4, you just keep doing you and make some money. So where might you want to go from here? So now you have this thing that can automatically build, and you have this repository that you can push code to. So now you just start to integrate continuously. It's pretty simple. Git rebase origin master. How many of you have ever been told that that's a dirty thing? Using rebase is a dirty thing. Yeah, it's not. So this is kind of one of those things where you may not see it until you start to run something like CI, where you're like actually tracking the tree and you want to integrate your changes and you want to kind of see how that goes, and then you realize you're starting to merge all these times, and then you have like 14 merge commits down for like 2 commits up. It's kind of an ugly looking tree, in my opinion. Tree basing, forward port, local commits to the updated upstream head. It's a fancy way of saying this. You basically have some branch, have this topic branch, and you kind of just change where it originally points to, what its original parent commit is. So the thing is, though, it does create A prime and B prime and C prime as opposed to just A, B, C, which is where it kind of starts to get ugly, because then you have to do this. And some people really don't like this. To those, I say, deal with it. If you're working on a branch, and you kind of own that branch, and you own the code on that branch, there's no reason why you can't push to it. For example, on GitHub, you may have a fork of it, a fork of this project, and you're the only one with write access. Who is anyone else to say you can't change your history on that fork? I mean, yes, there's...
So why not just merge master into your branch?
So, again, that starts bringing down merge commits down. So like you have your one tree going like this, a link here, then both trees going up, and then eventually coming together. As opposed, so this just provides a more linear approach to that history. Yeah, so this is one of those things where like knowing your team comes into play. No team that I've been a part of has like explicitly forbade force pushes. The caveat there is where you're pushing to. So in this case, it says origin topic. So again, if you own that branch or you own that remote, the teams I've been a part of say that's free game for you. Like no one should be expected. It's work in progress. So then the other thing is when you do something like this, Circle CI or any CI tool has your back. We already saw it, but I'm going to show a new example now of Circle CI. So I'm going to check out this example branch, and I'm going to push it. So it's a brand new branch. It's actually probably going to finish building by the time I hit my, before I even hit the pull request button, it's building. This one is intentionally going to fail. Ideally, the first one wouldn't have failed, and you could see that this actually does something. It doesn't just say green. It's not like certain companies' emissions test results. So this one will actually fail. So I'm just going to create the pull request real quick. Your pull request master, example branch. So what I'm doing now is saying make a floor function, and it fails for negative values, which it's now red. Should return 0, should return the correct value for negative numbers. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make this pull request. And notice now all checks have failed. GitHub is warning you before you press the merge button, like you may want to look at this even closer. So just kind of as a quick and dirty fix. So if what's coming in is negative, so now if we run npm test locally, test failed because I probably have a syntax error. Yeah. If I could spell. But so now it's all passing. Lint passes. So this is fix fix floor for negative. So I push it back to origin. Again, by the time I get here, GitHub knows that Circle CI is running. So if we head over there and take a look at it, so any questions while this continues to run? Yes. In an ideal world, I would have shown an example of that. But there is a section, Circle CI configures itself using a circle.yaml file at the root of your repo. And there is a dependency portion of that. So you can say, for example, Heroku, they have a web UI to include your Heroku API key and deploy to Heroku on this given branch, assuming all checks have passed. So that's where that build process comes in. Say you have like a production server and like the staging server, and you have associated branches, maybe production is master and staging is staging. You can say, when it's on staging, maybe I skip a lint check or something, and then I push to this beta box. And then in master, all checks must pass, like I want these extra commands run, and now I want this push to production, and it will take care of that for you. Yeah?
Can I deploy my own instance of Circle CI, and is it free?
So Circle CI is free. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's kind of a CIAS, as I'd like to call it, as continuous integration as a service. So it is, you would have to go through them for everything, and it's tied to your GitHub account for the actual account creation. So yeah, there's other options available though. Jenkins can be hosted locally, and as well as a few others. Cool. So as we can see, it runs the tests, it collects the metadata, and it's done. And so now if we go back to GitHub one last time, all checks have passed. So now I can safely hit merge, and my example math library now has the floor function. And writing it, obviously there was the failing test. It was caught before somebody had to code review it. Ideally, we would have had that like code reviewed and maybe 1 or 2 sign-offs, but in this example setting, just it passing and failing, or it failing and then passing is kind of enough.
So if I pass in a negative whole number, I don't think I'll get the right answer back.
Yeah, make an issue. Yeah, so this is an example, somewhat contrived.
Code review denied.
Yeah, code review denied, except it's already pushed. So, as I said before, deal with it. So, why should I use this? So hopefully the benefits are apparent, that you can see right on a pull request, right when you're reviewing that code, that this is or isn't what I want it to be. There's something syntactically wrong with it, conceptually wrong with it, test wrong with it. Whatever your build process defines is what is a successful build. Yeah, as I mentioned, that really fast feedback. If you want to move quick, you have like 4 or 5 devs, you want to push code out the door, getting that quick feedback and that extra kind of vote of confidence from a brand new machine being spun up and building your test or building your project. This will get your back on that. So does anyone have any questions?
We only taking one single question.
Yes.
That's it. So, is that like a GitHub like plugin for Circle CI, or how was it so nicely integrated?
So it uses the API, so it does request permissions, and you authenticate with GitHub originally. If you're familiar with Travis, does something similar from my understanding. Slack integrations kind of work the same way. You set up the GitHub one. I mean, yeah, so it's API based.
How big should my project be before I try this out, or should I just, no matter what I'm doing, always do CI?
Yeah, so it's one of those relatively dependent things. So, I mean, in this very, very contrived example app, maybe CI isn't necessary because, it's 5 lines. But outside of that, I would highly recommend it for any size project. It's just one of those nice to have. You don't have to think about it once you press a few buttons. And actually, what's really nice is the blurb on Circle CI's docs. When you go to like the Getting Started page, it's like add a project, click your username, click your repo, and that works for 90% of the users. Like until you start going to this more advanced thing, all you really have to do is press a few buttons. Yeah.
Just my previous question, can you do any sort of closed build success script like a custom script yourself?
So on Circle, yes. So the deployment section, so there's like post build, as well as like that whole deployment thing. So you can put just shell commands in there. I'm not entirely sure I'm sure they have like security built into that you can't like wipe the file system on a successful build, but within, that,
They're containers.
yeah, so, yeah, like, they'll, a lot would have to go wrong for you to do something crazy, but you pretty much have free reign. Yeah.
How much is free with Circle CI? Because I can't imagine like.
So I've been able to run my public repos and do deployment, as well as get SSH access to the box for. So if I had a failing build, I can SSH in for up to 30 minutes, which is before they tear it down. So it's got a pretty good feature set, and that's just the stuff I've been using in the past few weeks with it. So, yeah. Anything else? Cool. Well, if you have any questions at any time, let me know. I'm usually around. So, thank you.